Limits at infinity can be kind of confusing at first because you're not actually substituting in a constant. Instead, you're substituting in the idea of infinity. And so you have to rely a lot on logic in this case. And so using this logic, you can take a look at really any number or set of numbers, and you can figure out what is approaching by just adding more and more onto whatever variable. So say I needed to substitute in infinity for for x, which obviously I can't just substitute in infinity because it's a theory. So you would have to substitute greater and greater numbers if you're approaching infinity. And for that same reason, something like 7 over x would always approach 0 because as you divide by a greater and greater number, you will be approaching 0 but never actually reaching it. And so your number will get smaller and smaller and smaller and approach 0. And it is a similar thing with something that would be like x over 7, which is the inverse, where the number will be getting greater and greater, and the division by 7 will become less and less important, and so the number will be approaching infinity. So we have a couple of examples here. As I was saying here, if you're getting a greater and greater number, then this would be something that would be approaching infinity. And when you're looking at problems like this, you want to try and divide it into its separate parts so you don't get too frustrated or too confused. So this will be approaching infinity. So I'm going to draw that right above, because our limit is x approaching infinity. If it was negative infinity, it would still be approaching infinity because the x is squared. In this case, it's very much like the 7 over x, so it would be approaching 0. So since the 0 has no effect on the answer, we're still going to have approaching positive infinity, and that's your answer. And so if this is negative infinity, we're going to have a similar thing. Like I just said, this would be approaching positive infinity again because it's still squared. So it will always be positive, and this will still be 0, so you will still get positive infinity. And then this one, it's easier to just divide it out so that you can see the separate parts like I was talking about earlier. So let's go ahead and do that. We get limit of x approaching infinity of x squared divided by x would of course be x over 1, which you can just write as x, plus 1 over x. So if you're substituting in a greater and greater number for x, you're going to get infinity. And in this case, you're getting smaller and smaller and smaller, so you're approaching 0. And just like the top 3 answers, you're going to be approaching positive infinity. And there you go.